All right. Let's say that I go to the drag strip
Mm-hmm.
and I have to put, say, my car comes stock with a 372 ratio. That's a high gear because that is a big mile per hour gear. But for me to get through, say, a 511, that is a lower gear ratio. That actually makes my engine pick up more RPMs quicker, which brings me into shifting faster, which keeps the horsepower and the torque in a more even ratio so that you're getting the best of both.
Mm-hmm.
So you shift, you're still in the RPMs that are giving you torque. You haven't dropped below that RPM. So that takes away torque. It puts you into the RPM that is still giving you torque. And then it will still let you gain enough RPMs to stay in the horsepower so that when you make your next shift, you're at the top of the horsepower scale. Because once you cross that line, horsepower, your mile per hour slows down. You don't gain mile an hour as fast because all you're doing now is gaining RPM, but you're not going anywhere.
Okay. So
The engine will keep going RPMs, but it's not building no more horsepower. So you're losing by not shifting at the point where before your horsepower falls off.
so can I ask you a question real quick?
Yeah.
So if you go, you're in the tuning section, right?
Yep.
So if you go to output adjustment, because do you have the high RPM on this car?
Yes.
So what's your PP right now? 732.45?
785/77.
Oh wait a minute. 70.
But
Okay,
see, that
perfect, perfect.
changes because
Real,
of the
real.
arrow.
Okay, but real quick, I have the same thing. I have 785, 77. So if you go to output adjustment and hit that button, that map shows you torque vertically and horizontally. It shows you RPM.
Correct.
And tell me again using that map what you just said.
It's the amount of time that you want to stay in each gear to give you the maximum torque in the next shift up that you have not dropped below that line where you're not in the torque. So this this thing will build torque at 6,000. I believe it's six. Well, now that I've changed the turbo, that has changed. I would have to go back and look. But without the turbo, torque falls off at 6,000 RPM.
Okay.
So when you shift, you want to be right about 52 to 5,300 RPM, which is, see that you're still in the torque hasn't fallen off because acceleration is created by torque. The more torque you build, the faster you can move weight at a lower speed.
Mm-hmm.
Then, once the torque falls off at 6,000 RPM, now you have to rely on pure horsepower because now you've got the object moving. You've created enough torque on the low RPM scale to get your object moving. Inertia. It's called inertia.
Mm-hmm.
Once you've created inertia, now you have to rely on horsepower to pull you to the next shift. But you want to shift right before you run out of horsepower. At this one is 8,500. So I would shift right about 8,000 RPMs. That puts me 500 RPM below the horsepower before I start running out of horsepower, and I'm just now running on RPM, which does nothing. RPMs don't give you nothing.
Mm-hmm.
So now I shift. That shift should put me back right at about 5,200, 5,300 RPM, well within the torque to create the inertia now to move up
Forward, yeah.
so that now the horsepower can take over, and drag me the rest of the way through to the next shift.
Okay. So is that map that's in the output adjustment where it says that line
See,
that
it
says
doesn't give you a scale. All it gives you is RPMs. It doesn't give you the torque scale.
it says 524 torque, and that
If you want to
happens.
go into the torque scale, then you have to go back all the way to the uh um back to the where you bought the part.
The tuning shop.
Go to the part. Click on the part. It will show you the torque scale and the RPM scale there. So now you know at what RPM all the torque falls off, and now you rely on horsepower to keep creating inertia.
All right, hold on.
And if you don't understand what inertia is, ask your phone to tell you what that is. And then you will more than likely understand what I'm talking about, creating inertia. Because, see, now in real racing, it doesn't really apply to this game, but in real racing, you got to create inertia, you've got to take into sprung weight and unsprung weight. Which really complicates things.
Yeah.
See, now that's what I deal with when I'm setting up a real race car.
Yeah, you're setting up your car.
I got to have my sprung and unsprung weights, and then to know the gear ratios and stuff that I need to keep me within my boundaries of getting the maximum performance out of my engine without hurting it.
I got you.
So are you leaving me?
No, I'm not leaving you. I got
okay.
a shit ton of questions for you. If you let me ask them, if you're willing to sit with me and answer these questions.
I want to make some laps here. That's what I want to do.
Can I ask you real quick though, before you go to the tuning, can you go to the output adjustment and look at that map and tell me if what I heard before or read before makes sense?
All right.
So do you see
Where
how
do you
that?
want me to be? The top speed adjusted automatic adjustment?
No, under ECU it should say output adjustment, and then you click on it.
Yeah.
And you see how it says
okay.
that?
Yeah. Okay.
So you see that line at 524?
All right, let me look at this for a second. RPMs up to 9,000.
Yeah.
And foot-pounds of torque.
Yeah.
Horsepower is the blue line, and the torque is the gray line. Now, see where they cross?
Yeah, that's what I read.
See how the torque falls off, the horsepower keeps gaining?
Yes. What I read was that's your shift point. So get an estimation, which to me looks like around 75 or something like that.
Actually, the perfect shift point on this car is about 8,100 RPM.
Okay. And can you figure that out looking at this graph?
Yeah.
All right. So the shift point is where the blue and the gray lines meet, or before? It's before that.
No. That's just the only thing that is showing you is where horsepower takes over and torque falls off.
Okay.
See how the gray line above? See how much?
Yeah, the gray line starts dipping. Yeah.
Well, no, wait. Now let me go back. Go back to the very left where it first comes onto the screen. See how much the torque is and where the horsepower is?
Mm-hmm.
You're building way more torque than you are horsepower, correct?
Mm-hmm.
See where they cross?
Yes.
That's where horsepower takes over and torque falls off.
Yeah.
because the blue line keeps going up,
Mm-hmm.
the gray line goes down.
Mm-hmm.
Where they cross, just to the left of that in the gray is where you want to be shifting
Okay.
to the next gear because you're right at the end of the torque.
Mm-hmm.
And now you can build inertia.
Yep, like you
And
said, inertia's going to
then
keep
the
going. Then horsepower
takes
takes over to pull you to the
Horsepower
next
takes
gear.
over and drags you rest of the way to the next shift.
Yes. So the shift point. So what
So without torque, you have nothing. If you shift still in the horsepower range, you're not going anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
You got to shift while you're still in the torque band.
Mm-hmm.
And ride that torque band a little ways, and then horsepower takes over and drags you the rest of the way through that gear. And then when you shift again, it should go back to the torque band.
Yeah, the torque band
to
goes back and
drag
it
you up
drives
to where
up. Yep.
horsepower can take over.
So what I read was where that blue and gray line meet, if you drop a line vertically down, you wind up wherever that is. You said it was 81. And that
81.
that graph gives you an idea of where you need to be shifting. So you be shifting.
But now here's
before
the
that.
trick since we're running this turbocharger.
Mm-hmm.
The horsepower doesn't levels off at about 8,500. See where it goes up and all of a sudden it goes flat all the way flat the rest of the way to the neck to the wall there where
Yeah,
it
the
says 788.
Yep.
See, it actually starts dipping a little bit.
Mm-hmm. If you
Right
go
there where that little kink is where you want to shift. Because see, the horsepower starts falling off.
Yeah.
Just before it gets to the 788 blue number,
yeah, when
the
it gets straight,
horsepower is
yeah.
actually going down.
Okay. So if you move the turbocharged to none, you can see it drops down at 509 is where it starts dropping.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
now you're back to stock specs.
Okay, I got you.
So you want to shift at around 8,300 RPMs to 85.
Okay.
You don't want to take it over 85.
All
Because
right.
if you do, you're slowing down.
And it changes depending on which turbocharger you have on there.
Correct.
Yep.
That changes depending on what you do to the engine.
Okay. All right.
But since you got that high RPM sucker on there, that changes a lot of things.
Mm-hmm.
You got to stay in the high RPMs to make the damn thing work. So you got to stay between 6 and 85. You don't want to drop below 5,500. If you drop below 5,500, then you're going to labor to get back up to where the turbo starts working.
Mm-hmm. Now, why don't they have that number
when you shift, you want
down?
that next shift to be about 8,500.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that's how you set up each individual gear for each corner.
Mm-hmm.
Once you have your
they have
adjusted
it here.
mile per hour.
They have it here. When you go to manual adjustment, it says 8,500 right there. So that gray line is the 8,500, and that where the gray meets the blue and that all the way to the right, that's at that 788, or that's when it starts moving.
If you cross that gray line, you've went more than you need.
Uh-huh.
The gray line where everything stops is where you should be shifting.
So each one of those blue lines should finish at the gray line?
Yes. And on the other box, did you see at 8,500 it started dropping off down to 9,000?
Okay. Oh, I'm about to start tuning the shit out.
Anything that little piece of blue in sixth gear that is above the gray line, that is if you go to 9,000 RPM.
Okay. So when I put my sixth gear at 744, it meets the gray line. Mm-hmm. All right. Oh, shit. Maybe I shouldn't have adjusted those.
I wouldn't have done nothing until I've got to reset this back to daytime.
Okay.
I'm going.
Oh, shit.